Dear friends, thank you for joining this 24 Hours of Water. My name is Torgny Holmgren. I'm Executive Director of Stockholm International Water Institute, SIWI, and I would like to share with you the main outcomes of our World Water Week at home that we did during the final week of August. Normally, we invite people from all over the world to come to Stockholm, Sweden to have this conference. Last year we had some 4,000 participants from over 135 countries to come to the leading annual global conference on water policy issues. This year, of course, we couldn't do it due to COVID-19. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic has shown us how dependent we are on each other and how vulnerable our societies are to a pandemic like this, but also brought some insight that we need to tackle crises like this together to find joint solutions. And here I find that water can offer a number of solutions, and that was also something that was discussed at World Water Week at home this year. We did run some 120 sessions run by different organizations, governments, local, national, regional, public entities, as well as companies or research organizations, international organizations. And I would like to share with you 3 major trends that I did see come out of this World Water Week at home. The first one has to do with the climate, or is about the climate crisis is in effect a water crisis. Either we get too much water or too little water. We know that most disasters around the world are water related. And it's changing the living conditions wherever we live in societies around the world. I was most encouraged when I attended the climate conference in Madrid, Spain last year in December, when I learned that a number of actors, be they governments or private entities, now has brought in water as one major part in the way to mitigate and adapt to the climate change that is occurring around the world. For instance, how to use more nature-based solutions when we go for city planning, or restore wetlands and forests, etc., protecting oceans. Those are issues that were discussed in Madrid, and I think that was also discussed at this World Water Week. A second outcome of finding or trend at this World Water Week was a renewed focus on resilience. After COVID-19 we have to rebuild our societies or maybe invest in more sustainable future, but we also know that we now are very vulnerable to crisis like this. But this is a short-term crisis, maybe, hopefully, but there is a medium or long-term crisis that has been, unfortunately, been increased this last year. It's about getting access to clean water and sanitation around the world. Still, some 800 million people lack access to this basic water services or water provision. We need major investments to take place in the next few years to overcome this gap. We know that such investments also will pay off in quite a short time span. The third trend that came out of this World Water Week is about behavioral change. If there's anything that the pandemic has shown us, that the way that we change the way that we work and live, we do now act in a way that we haven't even thought of maybe some 6 months ago. And we know that this is very important for the future as well. I am quite optimistic when it comes to normally the technical change or technical improvements spurring development in our societies and our economies around the world. But the most fundamental change will take place when we do act differently, which we are going to do now. We have started to do now. So change in the way that we work and live is most important also for the future. At the World Water Week annually, we do awards 2 international water prizes, the Stockholm Water Prize and the Stockholm Junior Water Prize. The Stockholm Water Prize, whose patron is His Majesty King Carl XVI Gustaf of Sweden, was this year awarded to Professor John Cherry from Canada, and he has improved our understanding on groundwater contamination. The Stockholm Junior Water Prize competition is an international competition with participants from some 35-40 countries around the world. These countries run national competitions, and the winners of those competitions are coming to Stockholm for the international finals. This year, of course, it was not possible to bring all contenders to Stockholm. We did it in a digital version. It's a great pleasure now for me to introduce to you Zoe Gotthold from Richland in Washington State, the US winner of the Stockholm Junior Water Prize. Zoe was awarded the Diploma of Excellence for her innovative approach to tackle oil spills, and she was introduced by the patron of the prize, Her Royal Highness Crown Princess Victoria of Sweden.
When it comes to water, we as a world face some major challenges. There may be too little water, too dirty, or too much, all causes of disease, poverty, and conflict. Over the years, as a patron of the Stockholm Junior Water Prize, I have had the privilege of meeting many young finalists and winners from all over the world. I always cherish those meetings because they fill me with hope. Hope that when bright young minds come together, even the most complicated problems can be solved.
I'm now honored to invite my dear colleague Kanika Takar from our Water Resource Department. Kanika, you have the floor.
Thank you, Torgny, for the introduction, and thank you, John and Zoe, for joining me today for this special interview. John, I'll start with you. You have been awarded the Stockholm Water Prize for your pioneering research and advocacy efforts on groundwater contamination. As you have often pointed out, groundwater is 99% of available freshwater and drinking water source for about half of the global population. And yet, it's often forgotten about by water managers, policymakers, and scientists. What steps are needed to secure groundwater at the top of the agenda?
I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to speak about groundwater, and having received the Stockholm Water Prize, this gives me greater exposure. To go forward on how important groundwater is, groundwater supports 40% of the global food supply, and groundwater sustains many of our precious ecological systems. However, groundwater is sort of out of sight, out of mind, and it's largely because of lack of public awareness. And climate change experts tell us that in the future, we're going to have longer and more droughts. And when droughts occur, the rivers run dry and the lake levels go down. And if we're not over-exploiting our groundwater resources, as was the case long ago, then groundwater maintains river flow and sustains the lakes and ecological systems. But we're severely over-pumping and over-polluting groundwater. So in fact, groundwater will not be able to rescue us in the future when the long droughts occur. The public aren't aware of this, so in fact, the most urgent thing of all is raising public awareness. Without public awareness, we won't have political pushes to correct this problem.
Thank you, John, for that great, insightful answer that you shared with us, and really showing the depth of the problem, but also the solutions lie with all of us to raise our awareness and to be more aware of what we need to be doing and how we should be treating this resource.
What I just heard from John is this most important thing for us dealing with water, that we are not even maybe running out of water, but we have to take care of it more carefully in the future. I think that is what we realize around the world, with not only cities running out of water, but also water for agriculture. So thank you for sharing with us those insights that you bring forward on the most important issue about how we deal with groundwater and not contaminate it.
Zoe, similar to Dr. Cherry, your work has zeroed in on addressing lesser known but hugely damaging aspects of pollution. Your project, which was awarded the Stockholm Junior Water Prize Diploma of Excellence, took a novel approach to cleaning up oil spill emulsions. What inspired you to tackle this enormous problem, and how would you like to see your project move forward?
Well, firstly, I was inspired by my love of penguins. I think that they're beautiful creatures and they deserve all of our protections. But the reason that I focused on oil spill emulsions specifically was that lack of research into the field. Oil spills themselves are a hot button issue, but the emulsions shunted to the side despite being hugely important in terms of the environmental impacts of an oil spill. And as for the next steps, clearly I need to test more real-world conditions, taking this idea from the laboratory into more oceanic conditions, and then looking at the implementations of my demulsifying device and specifically environmentally safe implementations.
So your innovation and your love of penguins is truly inspiring, and it's so wonderful to see young women such as yourselves really engaging in this area and driving the way forward. So thank you for that. John, Zoe, my last question is to both of you. You are both working so hard to improve the human and environmental condition at local and global scales. In your closing words to our WEFTech audience, what are the 3 things needed to bring about the change that you're striving for? Zoe, I'll start with you.
I think at the most basic level, to allow any sort of scientific solutions to our world's water issues, we need a political response focused on environmentalism. Specifically with my solution, it's a stopgap as we reduce our world's reliance on oil. That said, I think that the next big thing would be a stronger investment in scientific solutions to smaller research problems. Not the big hot button issues, but the specific effects. Like with my work, instead of focusing on oil spills, I was able to look at emulsions and find something new. And I think that there's a lot more opportunities for growth. And I think thirdly, this culture of water appreciation is really important, recognizing that water isn't one specific field, it can touch any scientific work.
So feeding the world's mushrooming population during the next several decades is going to be the greatest challenge that humanity has ever faced. And water is at the essence of the issue. And to make progress, though, we're going to have groundwater awareness, at least in all levels of the educational system. So groundwater really is the essence of the problem when we go into drought periods and people aren't aware of it. Right now, there's hardly any awareness of groundwater in the educational system at pretty well all levels. The other thing is we're going to need much better groundwater monitoring. At the present time, we're largely unaware of what's happening with groundwater until after the fact. So we have to have monitoring so we can understand it as it happens. And then, of course, the key is groundwater governance. And for better governance, we're going to have the public pushing for better groundwater management. And in particular, we need to have groundwater valued better in the economic system. And for sure, we need to have polluters held responsible for their actions. But at the heart of it all is agriculture. Agriculture is at the root of groundwater overpumping and groundwater pollution.
Torgny, any reflections from you?
One key reflection is what I also heard at World Water Week at home the final week of August. What both of you underscore is the importance of behavioral change. Based on facts and evidence exactly, what is things going to move is how we do behave and the change that we work and live. I think that is so important, and that is what you just underscored, the two of you. So behavioral change for the future, for prosperity, for the world, and for the planet. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dr. John Cherry and Zoe Gotthold, for joining me for this special interview today. You've really given our audience a lot to think about today and to really help shape their engagement in WEFTech throughout the following days that they'll be participating in this online conference, but also hopefully in their professions as they go forward from here. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. You're both truly inspiring, and we really can't thank you enough for the work that you're doing. And thank you very much to our WEFTech audience for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing what comes out of this week.
Thank you for watching.